Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Loran webinar for educators across Canada. My name is Heather Holland, and I'm the Director of Alumni and External Relations at Loran. I joined the staff team at Loran 2 years ago, and I'm an alum myself from the class of 1998. Prior to joining the staff team at Loran, I assessed applications as a volunteer for over 20 years. It was an educator at my high school who encouraged me to apply 27 years ago, so I appreciate firsthand the positive influence that all of you have on your students with respect to this opportunity. So thank you so much for being here today. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm joining today from Nogojawanong, Peterborough, Ontario. As we begin, I acknowledge and reflect on my privilege to live, work, and learn on the traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. As we have attendees from all across Turtle Island today, I invite you to take a moment to acknowledge and reflect on where you are calling in from today. My colleague Michelle is kindly monitoring the Q&A box to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you so much for doing that, Michelle. And my co-host Kai Mitchell is also here with us. Kai, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you and say a big thanks for joining us today to share your experiences as a Loran Scholar. So we'll have a chance to hear more from Kai in a little while, but for the moment, I was hoping you could please briefly introduce yourself to everyone.
Yeah, hello. My name is Kai Mitchell. I am a Loran alum from the class of 2020. I just graduated from the University of Toronto this past spring, and I'm originally from Hudson, Quebec.
Thanks, Kai. All right, the format for the webinar today, the microphones are disabled. You are welcome to submit questions in the Q&A box at any time during the presentation. There will also be a question period at the end of the webinar, and information will be sent to you after the webinar, including a recording. The Loran Award is much more than simply a financial scholarship for post-secondary studies. It is an opportunity to build critical skills and capacity for leadership, to expand horizons by taking on new challenges and exploring diverse experiences, and to join a community of purpose-driven peers who are committed to leaving the world better than they found it. In other words, this is a long-term investment focused on helping someone see their potential to make a difference, supported by and connected to a network of others who strive to lead with integrity. Loran believes that Canada needs unconventional leaders in every sector, so it looks for well-rounded young people who demonstrate strength of character, commitment to service in the community, and leadership potential. Over the past 35 years, the Foundation has invested more than $70 million in more than 3,400 students. It's interesting to note that we are a privately funded public charity. So we are not funded by someone whose last name is Loran, but rather by hundreds and hundreds of donors from across the country who also believe in the work that we do and want to give high potential youth the opportunity to imagine, explore, and create the future. Today, there are 796 alumni and in-stream scholars combined, giving back to their communities and pushing boundaries in diverse fields such as technology, the arts, finance, medicine, social services, law, government, science, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. Over to you, Kai. I wanted to invite you to share a bit more about yourself at this time. Would love to hear how you found university, what you were like in high school, a bit about what drew you to the Loran Award, and a favorite Loran memory, if you could.
Sure. So I guess I'll start maybe chronologically with what I was like in high school. And I think, when I was asked to reflect on this, the best description is that I was kind of like a social justice nerd. I wasn't necessarily like a popular kid, but I was a kid who got along well with most other people. And I was like relatively well-rounded. But I also wasn't the type of kid who was, the president of a bunch of clubs. I wasn't like the head of a sports team. Um, and I did have like one or two things that were very big focuses for me. So I was really big on just doing music stuff for my own personal enjoyment. And I also started my school's Gender and Sexuality Alliance. And so then, because I'm in from Quebec, when I progressed to CEGEP, I kind of continued in that same kind of vein of working with and for queer and trans people, doing some more like collaboration with local like administration at the school. I will also say, as a high schooler, I had a bit of a healthy disrespect for authority. Sometimes it got me in a small amount of trouble, but also a fear of authority that kept me from getting out of too much trouble as well. Um, and so I think what drew me to Loran initially was just that I needed money, to be so frank and honest. And I had seen on TV at school that it was something that the school could sponsor me at the time, to apply. And I had a friend who was like, let's apply together. And that for me was enough to just say, okay, I can do it. But I was really scared, not scared, but I was not expectant that I would get anything out of it because I didn't have many formal leadership positions. The work that I was doing in CEGEP was with administration, and it was very like not glamorous, not exciting. I didn't have a formal title. I just kind of like hung out and worked on things. And so I didn't think I was a good fit initially. But then over time, when I realized what Loran was, I realized I was a good fit because I really wanted to challenge myself and try new things, in a way that I think Loran is really built and designed to push you to do. I'm trying to remember everything you asked. Good Loran memories for me are really intertwined with the people that I've met. My roommates all through university were fellow Loran scholars, and that's something I really cherish about Loran having given me was those people. And every year meeting up with fellow scholars, but also when I worked in a really small remote community one summer, randomly bumping into somebody who I got along with really well and realizing that he was a Loran alum as well, was a really special moment for me of really realizing that these are people who I could connect with anywhere I went.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. All right. The selection of a Loran Scholar is unique in both its attention to a young person's character and the comprehensiveness of Loran's selection process. Loran believes in looking beyond a student's transcript to find evidence of integrity, grit, compassion, determination, and resilience, recognizing that these are better indicators of a young person's overall potential. We are looking for the long-term impact these Loran Scholars will have. Think not necessarily of the student council prime minister, captain of the hockey team, first trumpet of the band, or the person who is always at the top of the class now, but rather the student who will come back to their high school reunion in 30 years and will have made a profound impact within their community. As you know, and as Kai just spoke to, these are not necessarily the same people. Kai, could you chime in to say what you see as some of the commonalities or common characteristics of your fellow Loran scholars?
Yeah, I mean, the last time I was hanging out with a bunch of scholars, we were joking that it's kind of the quirky award. All of us had kind of met people who had won different kinds of awards and realized that they were often people who were a lot more straight-laced and ambitious in very specific ways. And I don't find Loran scholars are ambitious, but they're not fixed on a single path. And they're usually people who are excited about exploring many different options. And they're also usually people who are generally good natured, generally kind, and curious about the world around them and about other people.
Thanks, Kai. The program elements, when taken together, make the Loran Award the only one of its kind in Canada. So I'll speak briefly to these elements now and then cover each in more depth as we move through the presentation. So the Loran Award includes an annual stipend of $12,000 plus a top up for the first year residents if needed, a tuition waiver of up to $12,000 annually, one-to-one mentorship with a local leader, a summer experiential learning program in 3 different sectors, and membership in a values-driven, diverse community, including an orientation experience, annual retreat, events, a national network, and a lifelong community. And I'll just add that the financial component of the award exists mostly so that we can provide scholars with the resources required to enable them to meaningfully contribute to their communities and fully participate in the program. And to clarify, the top up to the annual stipend of $12,000 is additional funds that are available in the first year for individuals where first year university residence costs for a basic room and a meal plan exceed the $12,000 annual stipend. And this award is renewable for up to 4 years or 8 academic terms. With respect to mentorship, each scholar is matched with a leader in their university city for a multi-year mentoring relationship. Loran mentors are people who embody the values of Loran and encourage our scholars to do the same. They are business people, community leaders, and experts in their fields, and they commit to sharing their experiences and networks with scholars throughout the course of their undergraduate studies. Potential Loran mentors are identified and recruited by Loran. We go through a matching process for each student, which includes a questionnaire and conversations between scholar, mentor, and staff to confirm a suitable match together. We recognize that mentorship can come in many forms and encourage all scholars to engage in conversations with others who can provide insight or advice on topics around their academic and career interests. We also facilitate connections beyond mentorship, including alumni summer coaching, fourth year transition conversations, and conversations with upper year scholars in a program or a university of interest. Kai, I was hoping you could share more here about your experience with your Loran mentor and how mentorship impacted you during the program.
Yeah, I think the biggest impacts that mentorship had for me were definitely early on when I was first moving to my new city. Um, that transition to a new place and also that transition into adulthood, I think, was really helped by having an older adult kind of in your sphere who's not a parent, who's not a teacher, who doesn't really have any set expectations for you or any set relationship to you yet, where you can choose how you're going to relate to that person and what role together work on what role they're going to take on in your life. And so for me, it was coming to a new city and having somebody there as somebody who you were expected to be not just allowed but encouraged to rely on and talk to was a really kind of comforting thing to have in a very new situation. And I think also I really appreciated the amount of customizability that Loran had in terms of what your mentorship relationship looks like. And so we filled out a form, and from there, you're able to kind of get a mentor who has all these ways that they meaningfully differ from you and ways that they're meaningfully really alike you. And so for me, it was really big that my mentor was queer, and I didn't really know any queer adults. And so that was a really exciting thing for me. And at the same time, she worked in a very different industry than I was interested in. And so to be able to talk to somebody about, like, what's your life like? What's your work like? And then to, as you're shaping your own ideas about what you want your life and your work and your school to look like, having somebody else to talk to about that honestly and openly was huge for me.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. All right, shifting into summer. So for Loran scholars, summer academic breaks represent opportunities for some of the most transformational learning experiences of their university careers. Assisted by our extensive network and up to $14,000 in funding, students enrich their studies by building practical skills and experience in the professional world to which they will one day contribute. Whether spent in Canada or abroad, Loran summers are typically 12 weeks long and are designed to provide scholars with greater breadth and understanding of the interactions and intersections between the private, public, and not-for-profit sectors, and the role each plays within the local, national, and global community. During public policy summers, scholars witness and participate in the process of policy creation. For enterprise summers, they contribute to the mission and goals of a for-profit environment. And then rounding out the trifecta, scholars gain programming and service experience in community development summers as part of a not-for-profit or non-governmental organization. Kai, can you share a bit about your summers and the value that you found in them?
Sure. So I did 3 summers with Loran. One was at a nonprofit in Montreal, one was in research in Toronto, and one was working in government policy in Nunavut. And for me, I mean, one of the biggest impacts was the fact that without that push from Loran, I probably wouldn't have tried to take on a professional kind of internship, or I would have just gotten a summer job. And so kind of that having that firm but friendly push to say, hey, like you are capable of doing this and you actually need to do this, was a really big boost for me. Like not just career wise, but also just personally. Um, and as well, like being forced to explore different things and being encouraged to explore different cities while you're doing that as well. For me, it was really exciting to be able to every summer try out a new place, and explore different things and figure out what you like and what you don't like about different work environments, different
Mhm.
types of industries and different cities all at once was really exciting and like a fun way to break up the university experience. Um, and yeah, I just think it was one of the best parts for me, and I loved one of my jobs so much that I'm going to be going back to the same city to work in, and that's something I wouldn't have discovered without that push from Loran.
That's so exciting. Thanks, Guy. All right. The Loran community is a very rich one, comprising scholars, alumni, staff, volunteers, and donors. We aim to support each other and hold a high bar for each other. We have many gatherings and events, both virtual and in person, during a scholar's time in the program and beyond. Community is at the heart of Loran's work. So from day one, Loran scholars join a supportive community that shares a commitment to service and leadership, and they strive to inspire each other to reach their potential and boldly tackle challenges, and often work together. Kai, can you tell us about the value of the Loran community as you see it and as you've experienced it?
Totally. I mean, talking with other scholars, I think a lot of us have a shared experience of when you apply for the award, mostly doing it because you're like, I need money, I need support in university. And then really quickly, the most of the value of this award, I think, long term comes from the fact that you have this community of people where everybody comes from, a huge diversity of backgrounds. So even going to the national selections for me was a really impactful experience as somebody from a smaller town to be meeting people from all these different parts of Canada, all these different life experiences, and learning about the differences and commonalities between us, and realizing like, oh, I'm becoming really fast friends with this person who I would have never otherwise met or never otherwise chosen to speak to for whatever reason, um, is a really exciting thing. And even if I hadn't gotten the award, I would have walked away with a lot gained from that experience alone. But over the past 4 years, building a community with my cohort of scholars, with the other cohorts around us, and with alumni, Lorraine makes a really tangible effort to connect people in a really like authentic and organic way. Has been fantastic for me. On the shallow level, when I go to Vancouver, I can sleep on somebody's couch. But on the deeper level, these are friendships that are going to last me a very long time. And these are people who I know that we might have some values that differ, but there are other values that I can come to, and I can just expect that this other person knows, okay, my priority in life isn't going to be money. It's not going to be selfishness. My priority in life is going to be, creating community. My priority in life is going to be giving back, and to have conversations with people where there's a certain baseline that you mutually understand, is so beneficial. And also just being able to connect with people well beyond when you're done with Loran, being able to meet alumni and have very real conversations about what their lives look like, what their work is like. Um, for me, I find that's a much more fulfilling form of networking than any other that I've encountered.
Thanks so much. That's great. All right. So the Loran Award is tenable at any of our 25 partner universities. Loran scholars are strongly encouraged to go to university in a new part of the country. This provides a chance for scholars to exercise independence, spread their wings, discover new communities, serve new groups of people, and gain respect for different regions of Canada. Ultimately, that choice about whether or not to attend university in another part of the country is the scholar's decision. Scholars are welcome to study in French or in English, and there are French options outside of Quebec. So on this list, we have the University of Alberta's Campus Saint Jean in Edmonton, Glendon campus at York University in Toronto, and the University of Ottawa as well. Students still need to apply and be accepted to university. It's a separate process, but they needn't have applied to university before they submit their Loran application. And they can tell us on their application what they're thinking about for their university picks, but it doesn't have to be set in stone just yet. So in addition to up to 36 Loran Awards, Loran will be granting up to 70 one-time provincial and territorial awards to candidates chosen by interview committees at the semi-final level, valued at $3,000. We will be also awarding up to 54 one-time finalist awards to finalists not selected as Loran Scholars. These awards are tenable at any publicly funded Canadian university. There are many opportunities for young people to succeed in our selections process, and we'll also share that we've heard year after year just how valuable the application process alone is to students. So often it's the first time they've reflected on their activity record and questioned their curiosities and motivators. So it can be a wonderful exercise to do before life after high school begins. Our three pillars are character, service, and leadership. The biggest one, probably at this point in a young person's life, is character. We kind of think of it as the hardwiring already baked into these individuals, even at the age of 16, 17, or 18. So looking for the things we mentioned earlier, people who act with integrity, people who show compassion and kindness, people who are inner-directed. They're not just chasing outer rewards. They're not solo players. They prefer to work in teams. We know there are some great solo players who will come up with some great scientific discovery or whatnot, but the Loran Award is actually geared for a different type of person, someone who is always engaged with others, thinking of others, and working with others. We mentioned before the intellectual curiosity in their interest to do different things and wanting to know more. We look for people who show courage and resilience and a commitment to service. And when we say service, sometimes people think that means formal volunteer work, but really it's commitment to others, really helping to make things better for other people, whether that's in their family, their community, their faith group, their schools, the workplace, just that dedication to others. We look for well-roundedness and authenticity and a willingness to take risks, those who genuinely care about their communities and they want to make things better. They're the people who take action. They don't just complain about it, but they get to work on fixing it and they bring others along with them. Students must be graduating from high school or CEGEP in 2025. So students who graduated in 2024 and are currently taking a gap year are eligible to apply. They need to present a minimum cumulative average of 85% or an R score of 29 in Quebec. Just a quick pause to say if you could advance the slide, that would be great. Hold Canadian citizenship or permanent resident status and be born between January 1st, 2003 and September 1st, 2009. So 85% is the general minimum, but Loran looks more at the overall pattern. So for example, a scholar with lower marks, but with verification from their school that they were going to do well in university would meet this expectation. The long and the short of it is this is an eligibility criteria, but not a selection criteria. So generally you need to be academically strong, but not necessarily straight A's across the board. Once an applicant meets this mark, it doesn't matter if they have 86% or 98%. Loran's criteria is evidence of character, commitment to community service, and leadership potential. Regarding the permanent resident status, this has to do with the tuition waiver that is provided by our partner universities being offered only to domestic students. So please encourage your students to learn more about the Loran Award by reading up on our website and or attending a webinar like this one. They can begin the application at apply.loranscholar.ca. The application is made up of a series of short questions to gather the context of the applicant and their experience, followed by 4 essays, with the longest being a max of 350 words. Please encourage your students to start early. They can save their application in pieces and work on it over multiple sessions. While working on their applications, students should determine who will provide a reference. The referee may be a teacher, another faculty member at your school, or whomever else they feel can speak to their activities and qualifications for the award. This person may not be a friend or family member. They should clearly communicate the reference and the request, and deadline to them. Referees will be asked to complete a few questions about the applicant, plus write a reference letter no longer than 250 words. An applicant can trigger the reference request within the application portal. And new this year, the referee can complete their portion of the application before the applicant has completed their portion. So it remains the case that the application is not fully submitted until the reference portion is complete, and both portions are due before the deadline. Completed applications cannot be changed. We cannot accept letters from referees to attach to an application, so it all must be done online via the emailed instructions. Referees should check their spam folder if they don't see an email requesting they log in after 2 hours following when the reference section was submitted by the applicant. Applicants should stay in close contact with their referee to ensure they submit the recommendation form on time. The application and reference form must both be completed before the deadline, or their application will not be considered. Students cannot skip steps, so the entire process must be completed online. If they cannot complete an online application for connectivity or other accessibility reasons, accommodations will be made. Kai, what about your own experience with applying? What was that like? How did you go about it? Who did you choose as a reference and why?
Yeah, so you already know that I did a poor job at applying because I I did the whole thing in 6 hours, which is not something that I recommend to anyone, but it does go to show that you don't have to be a perfect applicant to get the award. Um, I applied very quickly because I only learned about it 2 days before the deadline. So it wasn't, all my own frivolous foolishness. Um, but I will say, one of my biggest reasons that I did end up applying despite the tiny gap was because I had a referee who I felt was really strong and really believed in me. And I think that that's a part, I think that emphasizes just how important it is to have, people to emphasize to your students who you think have the ability, that you believe in them and that you will be a referee if you're open to that. Because for me, it was a teacher who always, showed that he noticed my efforts, or that he noticed that I had certain elements of character, that he told me, you're doing a good job. Congratulations on your hard work on this or that, in a way that other people didn't notice. And I asked him to be my referee. And to this day, I have no idea what he wrote in my application. Um, but I just felt very secure in asking him to do that. And so I would say during the application process, uh, a lot of the questions have to do, there's a question in our last seminar about whether it has more to do with like what you've accomplished versus like what your intentions are or something like that. And I think a lot of, when I was filling out my application, there was a lot of very good thought-provoking questions about what are your goals in life? What are your values? What have you done so far? What are you proud of? What aren't you proud of? For me, that were really good reflection moments. And so I think even students who don't think they have the capacity, because I didn't think I had the capacity, um, but even anybody, I would encourage to fill this out, just because it was, that application on its own was for me 6 hours of sitting down and thinking really hard about, in this pivotal kind of transition time, what do I want to do in the next couple of years? Am I proud of what I did in the past couple of years? Who am I? What do I want? And that was a really, that's an application that I still reflect on sometimes, thinking about the questions that they asked me and whether those still ring true for me now, 4 years out.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kai. As you know, applications are now open. Students can visit the website on the slide to begin their applications. October 15th before 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the deadline for all applications this year, and late applications or references will not be accepted. If a student has connectivity issues, they should contact info@loranscholar.ca or 416-646-2100 extension 100 to get a paper application. Paper applications are also due before the deadline. Shortlisted candidates will be asked to submit a supplementary video so we can learn more about the applicant before semifinals. Then, if selected as a semifinalist, Candidates will participate in online interviews via video conference and will be given at least a week's notice before their day of interviews. We will work with students who need support in getting internet connectivity. If we are unsuccessful, they will be interviewed by phone. Semi-finalists who distinguish themselves in interviews will be invited to participate in national selections in Toronto in late February. All candidates will be contacted sometime during the week of December 16th with the results. And costs to attend nationals are covered by Loran. One of the most frequently asked questions that we get is, what do I need to do in my interviews to become a Loran Scholar? So Loran's interview process is so comprehensive and individualized that there is no one way to become a Loran Scholar. We're not cookie cutter in our process. So our best advice would be for students to just be themselves. Our selections process recognizes that our candidates come from a diversity of backgrounds, each with different opportunities and challenges. We recruit selection volunteers from a variety of sectors, experiences, and careers who are demonstrating in their own lives the very values we look for in our scholars. By the time a Loran Scholar is selected, they have been interviewed or assessed by up to 13 different people. So there's an upcoming webinar for English students on Wednesday, October 2nd at 6 p.m. And the registration link is listed above. We can also email it to you after this session with the webinar's recording. Back to you, Kai. I'd love to hear if you had any doubts about whether or not you should apply, and what advice you would give to a student interested in applying. Any highlights from your application and or interview experience would be great.
Yeah, I mean, as I spoke to, I had a ton of doubts, and I think basically I have not yet met a scholar who said, "Oh yeah, I knew I was going to get it." I don't think there's anybody um, who goes into this process thinking that they're going to get it. Um, and I think for me, that was because I looked around. I was at a really big CEGEP, and so I was like, "Well, the person who's going to get this is going to be the president of the student council. The person who's going to get this is going to be, the person, who's the president of 6 different clubs. It's not going to be me. There's somebody out there who's better than me at everything that I'm good at," is kind of the thing that I think a lot of people believe. And and so because I had kind of a lack in more recent years of formal leadership positions, I was like, I probably shouldn't even bother. And the reason I bothered was just because a friend said that let's both do it, and I had a teacher who believed in me. It really comes down to that.
Mhm.
And so I think for me, one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give, other than be yourself, which is hard for people to believe, is truly and honestly the best advice, um, is to not focus too much on those formal leadership roles. And so a lot of the time, I think more and more as well, I think Loran as an organization and people who are doing the selections are cognizant of the fact that there are different forms of leadership and there are different life circumstances. Um, and so leadership might not mean you might not have the time for a lot of activities that other people do. You might have accessibility problems for different things. And so instead of focusing on, do I do 3 activities with one leadership role and 5 years of experience, instead thinking about what do you like about yourself? What are you proud of about yourself? What are things that you want to do with your life? What are the best things about you? And bringing that forward in your application, I think really showcases what makes you unique, what makes you deserving, because everybody is deserving. And, that for me, I think the people I've spoken to who did get it are often the people who are like, man, I talked about this random thing that wasn't that impressive, but it showed who they were. Um, and so I think for me, that's a big thing. And I think that that's also the moments of connection I had most in my interview process were also over things that felt really irrelevant, um, or that felt like maybe I was being tested a little on whether I'd lied in my application was how I felt at the time. But now I know it was also probably just like a moment of human connection. But I remember very, very specifically moments of like talking about music that I liked, and having the interviewer, like recognize my passion, or talking about I just have really good memories from selections as well. I talked about in a previous session of talking to somebody who was really scary because she was very high up in the organization and she had a lot of credentials, and she was my interviewer. And we had a great conversation about the Epic of Gilgamesh. And I came out of that like, oh, I said nothing about myself. But really, you say a lot about yourself when you're talking about the things that you like.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think for me, the selections process and the application process are huge sources of value, even if at the end of the day you come out of that not having gained the award. There's a lot that you gain of knowledge about yourself, of
Mhm.
confidence as well, that wow, these people believe in me, these people want me to do well, these people are pushing me. And so for me as well, I think it was really influential and really formative for the rest of my years thus far, that when I was in my semifinal or regional interviews, I did a panel interview where they asked me, I had put two very different career aspirations on my form, and they asked me about that. And I said, oh, well, I put this one thing, but like, I don't think I really, it's kind of a bit ambitious. So I put this other thing too, and it'd probably be good at that. And they said, no, I think you can do that. And there was no hesitation. There was no moment of like, oh, that's a reasonable kind of thing. They just said, no, you can do the ambitious one. I didn't end up even pursuing the ambitious one, but the fact that somebody who had just looked at this piece of paper that I wrote and said, yeah, don't worry about it, you can do that, was a really big motivator and a really big boost for me. I forget whether there was any other question of for me, Heather.
I think you covered it all. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you, Kai, that you wanted to add in general about your experience, knowing the audience that's listening, anything you would want them to hear that you haven't
Yeah.
yet shared?
I think I would really love to see as many people as possible apply.
Mhm.
Just, it doesn't matter what your self-esteem is and what your grades are and what you've done. I think the process on its own of applying brings a lot of value. And I think as well that people surprise themselves in terms of who gets picked. Um, because I think when you write about yourself earnestly and reflect earnestly, people can pick up on who you are and say, hey, I think that you would benefit from this. And it's also not a reflection of your value as a person, whether or
Mhm.
not you get this. And it very much has to do with also who is a fit. Uh, when I was in my application stage, I kind of rolled my eyes at the like, who's going to fit this. But I think it makes a lot of sense because there are certain elements of the program that are not for everyone. And they sat us down and had to talk with us about it. But it's true that there are just people are being picked not because they're better, but because they have certain ambitions, they have certain attributes that would be helped by being supported through Loran's program. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind too. It's not about the kid in your class or the kid at your school who's the best at something, but more about, who is going to really excel if they're given this tool.
Mhm.
Um, and I think a lot of people would, and a lot of people would benefit from just filling out the application and seeing where it goes. No harm in spending 6 hours of your life on that application.
Or less. Hopefully
Or
less.
less. But I think really the most important part is
Yeah.
self-reflection. And I think that itself is going to be giving you an intrinsic, reward at the end of this, is being able to say, I think I know something about who I am and what I want.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm really glad that you shared that comment around the program elements because that really is one of the key things that distinguishes Loren, that it's not just about the financial support, that it is about all those program elements that we've spoken about today, and our hope is that appeals to and is a good fit for candidates to advance through the process. So yeah, thanks for highlighting
Mhm.
that. Are there any questions from folks attending today? So we'll stay on the call a moment here and see if there's any questions that come up in the Q&A box that you'd like us to speak to. And if not, we can close things off. We're always happy to answer questions that may come up after the fact. You can reach out to us, the contact information provided Again, that's info@loranscholar.ca for the email address. And happy to be a resource as um, you're supporting students in applying. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and all the best.
Oh, I'm seeing
There
there
is
might
a
be
question
Someone
coming.
popping up.
Yeah.
Maybe just saying hi. Okay. Thank you. Take care, everyone.